I think we are live. What's going on, everybody? It's time for the main event of the evening. Introducing first. Another pullback day in the overall markets. Nice weakness off the open. All pops versus VWAP. Sold off. Little relief rally into close. But so far that 520 level I was looking for filled follow through. We got that breakdown today and nice continuation into this looking left level here. So now we've got these new levels established into this 510-ish range. So now I think any pops back into 520 should get some selling pressure, and any pulls into 510s should get absorbed. And I'd be looking for this level to break down. Ideally, if you recall from a couple weeks ago, anyone who was long into this capitulation flush, I think got a bit shaky over here that it was going to continue lower and probably stopped a bunch of people out. Once that news came out that it was fake news, before the actual Truth Social post came out from Trump. So what I would like would be a breakdown and stop everybody out, a little undercut and rally before continuing higher. So ideally, we get a follow through day tomorrow, gap down, follow through, and fade back into the sub 500 range. VIX still pushing, not super crazy volatility like we had in this panic environment, but it's still an elevated VIX. People are still uncertain. SPY is still at oversold levels. So this one has no real reason to move from these prices as of yet. MU, as I had mentioned, was my vehicle of choice. I did miss the second leg lower. Got the opening pop, shorted it, looking for that 67 fails. Once we were under it, I was looking at pops versus it. We got this little pop that failed, a low-a-day breakdown, looked like confirmation, and then started to hold and perk back over 67, so I had moved on. Did end up going a buck lower, but is what it is. Locked in a nice, not a crazy gain, but a little single there. Nothing I'm looking to marry. NVIDIA, I did expect it to be a bit weaker after that 100 breakdown. Didn't really go crazy. But I was using this one kind of as a guide, a little anchor for that MU trade. MVST, this one, I don't think I had put it on the watch list last night. I had just seen it this morning when I was running scans and noticed this little flag break, and I saw it broke through there on Thursday last week. So I saw the week open, and a typical strong breakout chart. I like week opens for red to green. So I took a little entry there in pre-market versus prior day's support, and right off the open got a straight up move through two. So I took the 15-cent gain and moved on. No sense in carrying exposure for no reason. GRR, this one here has been on the watch list for many days, many weeks. And what we got there was we had this big picture distribution, higher low trend fail under the 50-day moving average was right at this 23 level and got nice follow through lower. And now we're getting this bear flag breakdown. Prior support becomes resistance, consolidating, higher low trend. Very similar to what was happening over here is happening over here. So I had shorted this one in pre-market. Caught right before the open, caught a nice move lower, and once we got the hard crack lower highs, I start leaning for a trend join. So I do think range potential for me is into this 12-ish level, which would line up with the 200 moving average and this prior support. So I can put that on there. But this prior support, also lines up with the 200 moving average and also lines up with some pre-market levels. So 12s would be best case scenario for me. I'll do my best to last till then. If I get a gap down and washout, it's going to be a bit tough for me to stay patient. But I do think it's dependent on the overall markets and SPY as a whole. So yes, I do think this is one of the weaker ones, kind of like MU was. But if this, we did have that little bounce there into close, and if this doesn't get towards prior day's lows pretty quick, I'm not going to let this thing grind me back. Similar to what happened on this day when I had this entry here through the 23s. I covered the gap down. We got a straight up spike and grind all the way back up to my average almost. So I'm not going to be looking for that to happen again. So I will be looking for, in an ideal world, we get a gap down, sub 15 wash, and maybe get 14s, 13s covers, and that'd be good enough for me. But yeah, we'll see. No sense in making a plan right now. My average is still up in the 18s, so I'm not super emotionally attached to it. I didn't cover these because plan was bigger picture idea. So see where we're at tomorrow. Maybe still time for tariff news or market gaps or anything of that sort. And yeah, see where we're at tomorrow and make a plan from there. SBEV, unfortunately, went wild here without me. Was the liquidity trap idea over here. We had the 480 was the daily highs, and then 460 was where it was topping out, kind of over under level. And once you get that push up into it, consolidates and breaks through it. There's definitely a buyer here at like 440, so you can get a pretty decent entry there through the mid fours, whether you want to risk 440 or risk down towards like 380, 350, something like that. But anything from like 50 cents to $1 of risk, and this thing runs to 18 and after hours. Absolutely insane squeeze. If you were in the Investors Underground chat room at 12:35 this afternoon, Eastern time, I said SBEV vol has dried up, but the daily hasn't gone away. Worth keeping on radar if it starts to perk through looking left levels. And those looking left levels are these 360s, or 460s, I mean. And once we started to perk through those, you can see why liquidity traps. I like to look for remounts of prior highs. Goal on took the 430s. Nice. Congratulations. Nice trade. Yeah, it's just at that unfortunate time of day where I'm not typically on desk. So too bad it didn't wait till tomorrow. Would have been a really nice trade, but it is what it is. Eric was my main winner today. Multi-day runner here, up from 50-ish up to the 160s. And we got the B grade setup, which was the gap up into 140's resistance, little failed fall through level. And let it do its thing here in pre. And once it failed off of 8 a.m., I start shorting pops using 140s as a guide. We get that fail. At this point, using 140s as a guide, I still have a stop sized in versus prior day's highs. There's nothing saying off the open it doesn't spike, and I don't want to be emotional into those levels. But once it fails and goes red, now I'm using 140s as a stop. And covering along the way, reshort pops versus red to green as a guide, scale through lows, and then cover into those 110 targets that we had plotted from yesterday. Following profile levels, prior support, etc., etc. So nice little trade there. HTZ, I took a small trade on, nothing to write home about. But it was opening red, didn't really get much of a pop. It got slammed on pretty quickly after it tried to push, so I just shorted it off the open. And we get these wicks each time it keeps trying to pull, so I covered Got a little fail right there. You see it tried to push this candle right here where it tried to push and got slammed. So I shorted the next one. SSR was on. Have to wait for upticks. And it didn't immediately stay heavy. So I covered. Missed the next little leg lower. But as you can see, went a hell of a lot higher. So I don't think I managed that one too bad. MSGM, I decided against it with everything else that was going on. Wasn't really worth it for me. Yes, nice multi-day run, but volume was kind of dead, and most of the extension was on 1 day a move. So hopefully this just holds up, and we can get a breakout trade on it down the road. A couple first green day watches I had. NB bounced a little bit into close, so not as great of a setup at this point. Now that it bounced, those 240s are a lot better than 290s because I'd be selling some into threes if I was long at 240s. So see where we're gapping. Again, market dependent. If we're gapping back into these 240s, 250s, then maybe I look for dips versus prior day's lows. But if we're opening in this 293 range, then not super interested in that one. USAR, a little bit of a bounce into close, but still held relatively weak. Recent multi-day runner here, up from 7s to 19-ish. 2 days of pullback, nice steady fades. Morning weakness gets sold, pops versus VWAP. Morning weakness gets sold, pops versus VWAP. So now we're coming into this breakout level here in the 1050s. So prior resistance can possibly become support. I'll be looking for flushes back towards 11, ideally sub 11. If it can break under 11 and then come back and remount that 11 level, the goal would be this mid 13 to 14 level. So the closer it's gapping up to those levels, the least likely I am to trade it. I prefer gap downs, weak opens, and reclaims of key levels. So I will keep that one on watch as well. Palantir, I see some people looking at this thing for a long. This kind of looks like a similar setup to NVIDIA. 90-ish being the 100 level on NVIDIA, kind of right in here. Where if this starts to take out this 90, 89, 90 area, that it could probably start to roll over to the next volume profile spot, the next demand zone. So it could be an op there, similar to MU under 67s. Right through here, you can see support, 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 and then breaks down. Then you had NVIDIA through 100 right here, support, support, and breaks down. So Palantir possibly through this 89, 90 area, support, support, possible breakdown. I do see a lot of people still looking at it for dips because the this undercut and rally was deadly. It reclaimed pretty well. So if this gets back over these 98s, I think it's game on for squeeze. But given where the current market is, sentiment behind it, I don't think we're quite out of the woodwork yet. Bull, little bounce there today. That it was fairly short-lived. This is the Webull stock, SPAC'd last week. Monster move. Most of it was percentage-wise was done after hours, and then day 2 really caught fire, and then has been steady lows ever since. So a lot of people are trying to play this one for a bounce trade. Given this, it's kind of had like relief rally on the backside. So like range potential for me would be back up into these mid 30s. So I'd need it a lot further away. Ideally, you can see this volume profile here in the mid 40s, but just kind of because it popped here and then failed, everybody's kind of bagged from this day too. This was kind of that backside bounce. Now it's just a further fade. It could relief rally, but it looks like it's already had its bounce. So that's a bit tough for me to play there. I don't know if you guys have been keeping track of MLGO since I mentioned that quiet fader, but it went on quite a rip today. I was trading this one under this kind of 15 breakdown and was kicking myself for not holding it, but each day you're holding it, I guess you can probably risk maybe, looks like prior day's highs kind of works for a trailing stop. Once it broke under that 16, prior day's highs never broke. Would have been the patience approach, and then today gapped over it. So basically would have been covering out of the open for having like an objective cover idea. But parabolic right back up into those 16s. Pretty crazy move. What else do we have? What was that one? It just did a reverse split. It was a cheapie soon, I think. Yeah. Look at this. Just disgusting. And then Mullen, I think, just did a reverse split not too long ago. And it's back below $1 already. My God. I can't even believe some of these names are even listed. Wow. This thing did an offering. It's back at $0.01. Jeez. You guys remember this one? Did an offering in pre-market? Jeez. And it's at $0.01. Wow. It's crazy. Yeah, DLTR is a pretty good look. I was waiting for that breakdown trade, but it's definitely not really proving me wrong because I was waiting for that 60-61 trigger. Just the trade I was looking for never broke. But it is consolidating well. I think the early entry kind of idea is probably through something like this, like through 74s, through that little wedge break, depending how far back you want to draw it. But kind of how it starts to tighten up here, and then you get this little flag. So this entry here through prior highs is probably like the good risk reward entry. And then yeah, that 80 break could get going. See Dollar General. Dollar General's got some strength too. Yeah, definitely some relative strength versus the markets. My thoughts for HTZ regarding a short squeeze. I do think like billionaire plays typically have legs when you get big names, big investors investing in companies. I think they do typically have multi-day moves, but I also do think it requires a decent momentum market. So for me to be looking to buy dips on something like this, we're not in the right market environment. So for me personally, it would just be a breakout trade. Let it start to consolidate. Ideally, it holds up for another, I don't know, maybe another day. But we're starting to get this kind of look. This kind of look here. Where it's holding higher lows, lower highs. I would like this kind of point to get a bit tighter and maybe consolidate between 7 and 8 again before picking its direction. I do think the Ackman news is enough to have shorts involved and enough to get a squeeze going. So I think it's worth keeping on watch for sure, but it's nothing I'm going to anticipate. I'm not going to take it off my watch list. It's trading good volume. Volume did dry up, but it's still very high. It's not like it went from 200 down to 2. It's still very liquid, very tradable. The price action on it isn't the cleanest. It's been fairly choppy. So ideally, if we can work out some traders and some consolidation, maybe get both sides to kind of give up time-wise, not so much price-wise, but if they're not getting the moves they want in the time frame they want, then we might get them to give up, and then might get a bit cleaner. But yeah, I do think the Ackman news is enough if it starts to reclaim key levels to get going, but it's also not the right market environment for me to predict short squeezes. I just am waiting. So we've got the multi-day move, we got that first red day, and now I'm waiting for my next setup, which is either a multi-day pullback and a bounce, or a multi-day consolidation and a breakout. Fairly simple. Multi-day run, first red day, first green day, multi-day breakout. That's what we got. But yeah, Dollar Tree is a decent look. I don't think it's something I would play. It's just not crazy volatile, and especially the market. I don't think it's going to be explosive to the upside given the sell pressure tailwind with the overall markets. I think moves are a bit more explosive to the downside right now because anytime something breaks down, people are more panicky. Anytime something breaks out, I think people are a bit more excited to lock in, and moves aren't as explosive to the upside. And I think we're still months away from playing large cap breakouts, in my opinion. Not something I'm looking to trade. So I'm still looking at pops and bear flags for daily field follow through. So I'll keep this one on watch just because I'm positioned there as well. SBAV, where did this one close? I think it halted right at market close, I think. Yeah, right in there. So is the close at 6? It must be, because it halted and then opened after hours. So I think the prior close is right around 660, 670. So with it around 9, it's not really that extended. Around 18, I would have been a lot more likely if it was gapping up to 18s. I would have been a lot more likely to look for an overextended gap up and short sell. But now that it's pulled back so much, it's already 50% off its highs. But I'm not super familiar with these after hours runners. I don't typically trade them a bunch. I know with pre-market runners, when you get something that runs, say prior close was $1, and in pre-market it runs to 15, and then when it pulls back to 8, it's like, oh, it's 50% off its highs, it's a good buy, but it's still 700% off its lows. So it's still a much better short than it is a long. And longs typically kind of trip themselves up a little bit, trying to buy dips because it's 50% off its highs, but they're not kind of realizing where it came from. This one came from 4, but this one's not quite as extended. I would prefer if it was opening up in like the 18s and pre, I'd be a bit more interested. So just given the fat tail risk on something like this, I don't think it's a good enough setup to want to trade it right now. Eric could be a similar setup to HTZ, where it's gone on its multi-day run, has proven it can run for multiple days on good breakout reaction. So it came back and retested its 4 EMA, which was sitting right around 110. And so far holding up in the upper end of its channel. So ideally, I'm going to keep this 140 level marked on the chart and look for it to remount those 140s and act as support, and then maybe get that 160 breakout down the road. Worth keeping that one on watch. MSGM. Could be liquidity trapping. We'll see. Still quite a bit off its highs, but again, most of the range came on day one, or not on day one, on one day of the move. So there's not a ton underwater. So as far as watches tomorrow is probably USAR and GUR. Probably my main watches. MVST trades pretty clean. If we were to get a gap up parabolic, a bit more straight up than this, if this were to continue, I like this one for pullbacks. It trades pretty tight spread wise, and it's thick. There's not a whole lot of outlier risk, so this could gap up and maybe push into like this 240-ish and just straight up into it. Yeah. What's up? Great information to know. I did the trial IU a month ago, and now we'll take the discount. So I'll see you in the room. Picked up IU. Oh, nice. Nice. Cool, guys. Jeff, Golan. Sounds good. That's good to hear. Yeah, I don't think you'll be disappointed. IU's got a lot of stuff going on there. It's a good room. It's just about the only one I stick around in. A bunch of the other ones I left. I'm still around with the Clover guys too, just because they're friends of mine. But in terms of active day trading, IU I think is the place to be. If it wasn't something like it, I would want to make something like it, and that's kind of why Nate made it the way it is. Jeff likes what he sees. Cool. Good feedback. Yeah, glad you guys took advantage. I got it years ago in 2020 or 2021. I joined on the 4th of July sale and kind of never left. So, good to hear. Yeah, feel free to PM me or tag me in the lounge or something so I know your guys' usernames. I'm D22 everywhere, so message me in there and then say, hey, it's Golan or hey, it's Jeff, and I'll be able to keep an eye out for the screen names. But as far as watches tomorrow, yeah, USAR, possible backside bounce. NB, MSGM, HTZ, AREC, all recent runners, just keeping on watch. GUR, definitely a main watch. See how this one reacts, just because I'm kind of sized in there. So I want to see how it reacts with SPY. So yeah, probably GUR and USAR, probably my main couple. And then, yeah, let the rest of them set up, and hopefully some trades and something like Eric or Hertz in a couple days. Sounds good, guys. Hop off there. Check out. I think that was enough for one evening. One day's worth of watches. I think I will check on out, and I will see you guys in the room tomorrow. So sounds good, guys. Trade them well, and I'll catch you later. Peace.